So welcome to another Earth Nouveau Exploring Consciousness with a Hub. And today we have an interesting topic about the elementals. And we are all sort of broadcasting from a different place, from a different energetic place. And I changed my background because I feel a little bit like I said to the guys earlier on, like in a black hole, and that's the closest I could find was like an empty tube station. You know, there's a huge space around me with nothingness that includes multitude of possibilities which I can't at this stage define, or let me be more specific, I don't want to define them. And before I ask everyone else from which sort of space they are broadcasting from today, this is a little bit where that topic today came from. The topic came from that place of shapelessness. It's almost like, you know, we've been working all these years on the personality, on the I am. And it's now the time to almost transcend that space, not to lose it, always be able to get back to it, but, you know, move on that rainbow bridge, on that Antakarana, into the next level of having that soul connect with the spirit. And what better place to do that than looking into the invisible? And what is this invisible thing? So this whole thing, what I did was, the other day we were talking about, remember that black train that I had in my dream, the panther that shape shifts, and it's a locomotive, and then it's got these box wagons, if that's what it's called, in the back. And I did a trip up to the sun to collect a few souls and then bring them back, and just they went wherever they needed to go. And there was one, when I put it back into the garage, there was a consciousness left in one of the wagons. And I'd like to say it was, I thought, well, who are you? Are you, connected? How are you connected? So like a divine spark. And she came, she looked like a little girl, like a 7-year-old girl, I would say. Beautifully feminine, very kind, totally undefined. And I said, so where do you come from? And she said, well, she sort of from outside of, she said, the sea of love. So outside of consciousness, outside of awareness. And she wanted to come and spend a bit of time with me to learn what's going on this, and how she could, and I say she because that's how she represented herself, or I saw her like that, or I offered the space for her as a she 7-year-old, how she could connect with us. And that brought up this idea of the elementals, and the lower kingdoms, because we often say, let's connect to the earth, but what does that actually mean? Who are we connecting to? And when I put out the post, I realized I didn't mention the animals as part of the kingdoms. And I thought, why did I not mention the animals? Because the animals we can see. So this is really going into the invisible. The elementals, the minerals, we can see the minerals, but the elementals that are working with the plants, that are working with the animals, and the elementals that are working with us. And then, once we get a better grasp of having a more realistic, if you can call it that, sort of communication with the elementals, then we can start, adding our role as an elemental, as a form on earth, and how we can connect that to the cosmic or the spiritual or the higher sort of kingdoms. So that was the whole idea of the contemplation. So let's see where this discussion is going to take us from the elemental perspective. And after all this blah blah, where are you broadcasting from today? Let's just do a round. So I'm in this black hole.
I am blasting. Go, Jen.
No, you go, Sean.
Okay, I am blasting out of my peripheral nervous system, out of a long thought tunnel.
Okay.
I've been in the black hole kind of also. I would have called it the void space or just incubating, which I tend to do before I have like another expansion. So it's just kind of a holding pattern, but I enjoy that time to just kind of close off and just feel what's around me and communicate with what's around me in my house and my pets. And so I kind of enjoy the quiet.
I feel like I've been, because of the winter and the short daylight time, I've been hibernating. Like I've been sleeping a lot more than I usually would be sleeping. Been waking up much later than normal. And I feel like I've been in my dreams, I've been seeing a lot of white lately, more than usual. And that's why I kind of make note of it, because it wasn't something that I used to see regularly, but a lot of white things would appear, like in clothing and all kinds of stuff like that. And so I woke up this morning and I feel awake, but then I feel like I've gone back into the dreaming mind of Earth again. Like I'm halfway there and halfway awake, that kind of feeling I'm getting. I'm not quite fully awake and I'm not dreaming either, but it's like in that midway point. It's like the tunnel, you're seeing the light, but then you're still in the tunnel maybe. And that's kind of how I'm getting it right now.
I've been very much in that same, I think a similar space of Martina and Jen, which is sort of like this void space where there's still old stuff that's clearing out, but the new hasn't opened up yet. And I'm also doing a lot of reading and contemplation in preparation for the trip I'll be taking to Egypt. So I've sort of been in this, this learning and information gathering, and also looking at what I need to release, right, as I prepare myself for this, spiritual pilgrimage that I will be going on. And it's interesting because I feel like so much old energy is clearing out, and I've been cleaning out, my pantries, and after Christmas, all the Christmas stuff is put away, and cleaning the house and cleaning out my closets. And I drew this card, this archetype card, which is the sustainer, which is, kind of in contradiction to what I've been feeling, because I feel like so much stuff is moving out. But it's also always the question of, like, what do you get rid of and what do you keep? Like, where is the value? You don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? But you want to get rid of all that. All that does not serve any longer. So I think, I'm looking at this from my business perspective and also my personal perspective. So there's this sort of great, I don't know, like chaotic energy in a way where things are really stirred up.
Where you were saying like you're waiting for what's coming and just kind of releasing what's old. What's coming keeps changing too. I don't know if you guys can feel that, but it's almost like watching a Rolodex spin, and like what the page opens to, and they're like, no, that's not going to be it. And so like
Mhm.
for me, I've just kind of sat back and just have no concern or attachment for what that is going to be. Like that's what I'm mastering right now, is not having the curiosity of what's coming, just having that trust and sitting back and knowing that like whatever it's going to be, it's going to be fine.
I've
And
just
that's-
been writing for the past week. Everything that's been coming in, like so much information and ideas that I
Mhm.
built upon before have came in the last week. And I've just been almost struggling to write it all down because it's all so good. Just gotta write it down.
I've been drawing like that too. Like I can't get my sketchbook too far out of the way, and painting too. I've been painting a lot.
I know it's like you gotta run to the bathroom to take a shit, but you gotta actually run back to your notebook. Oh, I gotta write that down. I don't want to lose it.
Just bring it
So
with you
let's
next time,
speed
Sean.
Sigils on the wall, you know, whilst you're there, use whatever is available.
Mhm, mhm.
I just have
So
my
much.
house painted, and I really wanted before the painters came in to like write a bunch of sigils and intentions on the wall, and I didn't because I thought these people aren't going to want to come back because they're going to think that like satanic shit's going on in the house or something. But since everything is freshly painted and I have spare paint, I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to underlay my walls with a bunch of sigils.
You must put
Nice.
your there. Absolutely.
You know, it'd be interesting to, you know, just to do like a border, even a small border, right? Like I see the molding
Wayne stuff.
behind the molding behind you, right? You could do a sigil border like that right around the whole room. It would look really interesting, I think.
Well, I have some 12-inch by 12-inch canvases that I've done acrylic pours on, and I've had some of them that have asked me to put like a specific symbol on them, and so I've got 5 of those done. But I think I want 12 of them, and I'm going to do. I've got a 2-story wall in my living room, and I think I'm going to do one of just those 12 by 12s with sigils on them too. Those will show out sort of thing.
Mary, sorry. Mary, would you like to share with us what sort of space you find yourself in,
Yes.
just as a metaphorical?
Yes, Martina. It's I'm actually driving, so I just have to knock on and off the audio. I don't want the engine of my car to kind of cut across all of you there while you're talking. And it's interesting that I'm driving actually, and it's because I'm really broadcasting from a place where I'm on the move. And that very much reflects my energy of 2023. And it's okay actually. It's sometimes it's where I do my best work. It's where I have my biggest insights and my clearest thoughts. And I've discovered about myself that I have to almost create sometimes other distractions so that I can really get to work. That sounds like a bit of a contradiction, but it's how I work best. And if I have timelines and deadlines and I don't have an awful lot of time to do something, I'll always give my best work at that time. If I have too much time, I'll waste it. So that's where I'm coming from. And it as I said, it reflects very much the energy of 2023. I can identify an awful lot with what everybody has said about letting go of old and welcoming new. And it's it's painful too at the same time. I have had some old memories and connections to let go of that were special, and it was difficult, I suppose, in the sense that not that I didn't want to let them go, but in the recognition that there was a parting of on a level only, but still a recognition that there was a parting, and that brought up its own sort of grief, I suppose, and memories and all of that were connected with the life that I shared with somebody. So there has been that, but at the moment I'm just in this space of broadcasting on the move. So it actually feels good. I was hoping I'd be back in time to be on the show where I'd be sitting down somewhere, but that didn't work. But that's all I can say for now. But I am tuned in and I'm listening to all of you as you're sharing and talking, and I will join in with you. But I'll just click off when I go off because can you hear the engine of my car?
Nah.
No.
No? Okay, that's okay. I might leave on then the voice, the audio. I just didn't want the noise of the car, and it's pouring rain as well here, and the weather has been very dramatic, which of course I absolutely love. I love dramatic weather. I love thunderstorms, snow, everything like that. So we haven't had snow, but we've had pouring rain. And I was thinking as Tanya was talking and all the rain that was doing where she's living, about a session that we had, or a chat we had with Anthony one time on our mentorship. And it stuck with me because it was very relevant for Ireland. He was talking about the relocation of water and how the water, evaporates in another place, and it is carried in the clouds and it is dumped in someplace else. So there's a lot of that going on at the moment, and the water that is coming, you kind of wonder, well, where is it coming from? Where did it originate? And what's the message, and what's the elemental in the water? What's it telling us? What is it doing for us? And water would be something, it would be an element that I would always associate with movement and clearing. And it's relevant, I suppose, in our conversation about the elementals. So I'm very aware of that. The rivers here are all overflown, and I could stand and look at them for hours, the movement of the water and the waves. And I've always had an urge to jump into them, so I hope I never do that, because I'm a terrible swimmer. So I can't imagine where I'd end up if that happened. But I do have that urge, though. I just think that it's so inviting to float on top of the water. It's like when I talk about floating on the nose. The water has that invitation for me, but I am a bit afraid of water, and I never really mastered swimming properly because I didn't learn until I was older, and it was much more difficult for me to get over the fear. But that's something that I can work on. But anyway, that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm broadcasting from for now. So catch up with you later.
No, thank you so much for making the effort, driving and bringing that movement energy into our sort of, I wouldn't say stagnant, but, that it's like, it's nice to have that movement come in a little bit. Now,
yeah.
I'm just wondering, everything that we've said now, and you brought the water in and the water elementals. So I got this book here. I don't know. Can you see it?
Yes.
It's Nature, Spirits and Elemental Beings by Marko Pokachnik, which I've been reading. So we can do a little exercise. I want to make this a really experimental thing. There's no point to start talking what are the different elementals, and is there a fawn in a tree, or is it a fairy, or is it an elf? Because we all have different perceptions on that, but I just want to really look at, as we are feeling, because, Mark Pokachnik very much says, and even that I would like people to go for their own resonance, says that the elementals work very much on the emotional, on the feeling side. I personally cannot say that has been my experience. I can have a mental sort of communication with them as well. But he talks very much like he's connecting to the elementals through the feeling, through the solar plexus, more than anything else. And he considers, so one of his suggestions is to use the solar plexus like two antennas coming out the back or the front. It's almost like the antennas coming out and you're palpating. Who's gone? She has to go to the dentist, hasn't she? Cheers, hey. So palpate, and connect to the elementals and sort of feel them and perceive them and be with them. But I think equally so that can be done on a mental perspective as well. So, but would you say, is that a sort of understanding or a perception that what's going on at the moment with us is also impacting hugely on the elementals?
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I just posted a website in the chat that Christopher Jacobs shared on Facebook that has all of these different trees that look like, elemental beings. And, one of the things that I'm seeing over and over again is renegotiation of contracts, right? And this includes for the elemental beings. It's like, as we're moving into this next phase of Earth Mother, all of these energies and all of these contracts of universal law are being renegotiated, including with the elemental beings. So I keep seeing, more and more photographs that are being shared on Facebook and other sites that look like these, beings in the tree, beings in the water, like faces in the wind, right? Dragons flying through, cloud dragons and cloud phoenixes. And, I think there is this stirring up of the old energy for release. And that includes, it includes what's going on with our global narrative systems. It includes what's going on with each of us individually, and also the animal kingdom, the elemental kingdom as well.
Absolutely. And this big reach distribution that's going on through the healing of the earth that she's going through, Gaia, the soul of the earth, and everything that comes with it. There is a huge uproar. There's an uplift, there's an uplifting, but also an uprooting, right? So and an upgrade. It almost feels like that, what we used to have our animals as our friends, it's now they become much more equal to us, and it's more like now the elementals, whoever they are now, whichever ones you work with, are coming more to the forefront to start communing and working with you, and really also saying, look at us beyond the fairy tale myth, and really look at the work that we are doing, because without the elementals, the form on this earth would not matter, would not be able to be connected and held together, right? So every single elemental, and you could almost consider yourself as an elemental, whichever hierarchy you want to or connection level you want to put yourself. It's that feeling of everything is coming on non-competitive, equal sort of balance. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah.
I love
There's
that.
a lot coming out right now.
It really does feel too like the animals are becoming more present, right? It's like not present, but
No, I know what you mean.
their energies are participating more in human relations and even interspecies relations. I mean, I'll tell you, when I flew down to see my parents and came back from San Diego at the middle of December, I flew later at night, which I normally don't do. And I was just amazed at how many pets, service animals, right, were traveling with people. I mean, there were like 20 different dogs on my flight from San Diego to San Francisco. So, more people are bringing those, animals into this human relational. I mean, 10 years ago, it was almost impossible to get a pet on a flight, and then they had to go in the, in the baggage. And, I remember some pet dying, a few years ago because of the conditions. And so now the airlines have changed that. But these are the things that are changing.
And
Right,
not
which
to
is-
mention everything being caught on camera. Because then it gets caught on camera and everyone else watches it. Then they get a memory of it. They're catching so many funny animals doing things, and it's like, wow. And then it has such an audience too when it gets caught on camera. And it's like, was that dog planning that? Yes and no. But then they do it and it's just ridiculous. It's like, gotcha. Everyone's watching me and I'm just a dog.
Yeah.
You're working
Well, I
so
love
hard.
I
So,
love what Jen is saying too, that she's noticed more like unaware and unawake people starting to talk more about seeing elementals in the trees, you know, and that communication, right, that we're all receiving when we're open to it.
Yeah. And when we're open to it, we're really starting to create through observation. Because let's face it, that the observer effect is coming through more and more and more, and the practice of observing. And I think that's why it is getting more interesting to talk about the work of the elementals and the way we perceive them, how we can work together with them to obviously assist. Not that Earth necessarily needs greatly to be assisted with whatever, you know, transformation she's going through, but it's part of the job. It's part of the service. It's part of the soul consciousness of, and it allows us to start that interspecies communication. That once we practice that on the earthly, on the earth, then we can take that to anything. Because we were saying last time, remember we were saying working, you know, changing our vibratory rates depending on which planets we're going and things like, it's the same here now. Depending on which elemental you want to communicate with, which chakra are you actually using? You know, I mean, this guy says, yeah, he uses the solar plexus chakra, but you know, I think we all have different sort of technologies and different sort of experiences how we are. But it's really nice to start. I think it's a good idea to start talking about it, so that we're bringing it into this reality a little bit more. So how do you guys, how have you been perceiving yourself working with the elementals? Which particular elementals are you more or less familiar with? Or not at all? To be honest, I have not been greatly working with them until I've met this young lady who really said, hey, let's do some work together on this one.
I guess most of mine's the weather, the planets and the stars, and sometimes a few animals, like birds when they're flying above, or the spider, because I just, you know, you see its cobwebs around everywhere, and it's like creating its own weave. And especially when they're in your own house, it's like, okay, we're going to create something new now, and you wipe that old one away. So a few animals, but a lot of the weather. I really like talking to the weather and the directions.
So what I know about elementals, and just talk about the body elementals for a second, where you have the earth elementals, the gnomes, which are like little building block workers, you know. I sort of think of them as like the little menahunis of the body. And you know, those are like structure elemental. And then the salamanders are the fire elementals. The undines are the water elementals, and then the elves and the sylphs are the air elementals. And so one experience that I had working with one of my clients who just has a newborn baby who was having some trouble digesting because she was premature, and her the little sphincter between the lower intestines and the large intestines and the small intestines was immature, right? And so not functioning as strongly. And so we called in her body elementals, the little gnomes, to sort of like work on that for her. And now she's functioning, you know, much better. She's a few months old. So to just see those little elementals working in the little baby's body like that, because we're aware of them and we called for them, right, for that help. So they do work in that conscious communication realm, within the body and within systems, right, within not just our physical bodies, but everywhere around us.
Absolutely. And I think this is where we can really, I mean, the way I look at it, I for me, they're coming really through now because it is an invitation to work with our intuition and imagination. And for me, the intuition is the bridge between the emotional and the mental. Bringing the mental and the emotional together is the intuition. And that's how we're bringing it into, and you know what? It doesn't mean it's no longer about believing. It's no longer about that. It's literally saying, yes, those little gnomes, they live in the body and we're going to start using them now. It's just a metaphorical representation, in the beginning, until you keep on practicing, and through the observation and through the practice, they become a bit more solid. But you see, this is the other thing, what I've been working with this, I call her Maya. Her name is Maya. And she's quite interesting because, I see her, she's not an elemental, but she works with them. So we're looking at the connection. She works with them and she's showing me my connections with them. And she's not very fussed about identification or anything, she's quite happy to be formless, to be seen formless, and still to be acknowledged. And the only thing that I have to do in order for her to maintain the level of connection is I have to keep my vibratory rate at a certain level. Because as soon as I go into internal thought processes, and disappear, she can't hold the vibration that I'm keeping. And that was making me realize again, it's like we really need to talk in energy now rather than anything else. It's like you've got to keep that energy level at a certain frequency in order to connect to those various, elementals.
We need that muscle memory of sustainment to keep it prolonged so we can have that long conversation.
The sustainer.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So this is what I've been working on lately. I just started the last week. I've been writing all these notes for my new big research project, which is like awesome, guys. Like it's going to be a lot to put together, but I'm really putting together how those emotions and intuition and sensory perceptions merge to become intuition. How they grow, like how they come into the stomach, the solar process, or the solar stomach, or fucking, oh my gosh, the solar plexus, but how it's a process of that protein growth. So I'm following, and I'm going to redevelop how science looks at the nervous system with this project. I am really excited, guys, because it's connecting how things come in through the stomach as protein, go to the small intestine, further developed, to the kidneys, to the liver. And as on the liver, that's the last stop before the heart. And the heart brings it to the brain. So the question is, how much waste do we have in our brain? We kind of went over this just a little bit. How much waste is in our brain and how much is circulating in the nervous system? And I came to the conclusion through my studies that our peripheral nerves are completely part of our nervous system. Like the cerebral spinal fluid actually goes into our peripheral nerves. It actually goes all the way out to our nerve endings. And so as we create memories, we have to bring them all the way out to their sensory perceptors at the end of our nerve endings. If we don't have that somatic release. And that's how we create the special nerve memory. And so many experiences get stuck in the central nervous system. They get stuck in the brain. They never actually get out of the brain. They never get expressed, like the brainstem too. So many things never get out of the brain and the brainstem. And then it's like, I got this realization, that's where we are as a humanity. We've been stuck in the brain because the brain is such an isolated process in cyclical flow. Like from the brain to a nerve ending, it's an isolated system for such a long time. It's such a lonely space to create that idea. But can we actually bring it out? Can we sustain it? Can we grow it? It's a
So
And so,
No,
so
go-
would you say, Sean, that using the elementals of air and water, right, in a conscious way, when that energy is flowing through the system, helps to bring those memories. I
But-
just think about the phrase from, okay, I know this is Frozen 2, the Disney movie.
You're
but
fucking hilarious. I'm gonna
Olaf,
watch that tomorrow.
Olaf, the snowman, right, is this wise little clown, the fool, he plays the fool, but he also says that water is memory. And so now just thinking about the way the water is being redistributed and all the rain that's happening in Ireland and all the rain that's happening in California, right? And the water, it has memory. So as those undines move through the body, through the digestive system, through the liver, through the heart, through the brain stem, down to the end of the nerves, can we consciously call upon the undines in our body to help with that transmutation process?
That is so funny. I just learned about this analogy last night, and I plan to watch Frozen 2 very soon just because of it.
It's all
Because
about the elementals. So
Because water has memory. Water carries the memory of everything that's ever it's flown, like been through before. So anything water has ever flown through, it'll hold that memory. But it's like the more we practice, the more we use it, the more nerves we create. But as children, part of that flow, if you think of the central nervous system, then the peripheral nervous system to the nerve endings. When we're little babies, we have all this sensory perception. We have nerves going off every direction with full mobility, and it allows us to go into different spaces. But as we limit our perceptions, because we're not letting things actually come out of the brain, we're not actually expressing them anymore, those little nerve endings, they start to retract and die. They start to come off, they start to come back in, and we stop using them. And that's when we lose our sensory perception, because the fluid of life from our brain and our spinal cord is no longer being pushed out the nerve endings. It's no longer coming out to its full expression. It's no longer being nourished with the water of life. And so you have demyelination, you have excess protein in the brainstem, you have heat, you have cytotoxins, you have inflammation that burns the myelin sheaths, and then everything just gets incinerated and starts falling apart, and the river runs dry. And so when we're kids, that fluid of life flows all the way to its smallest tributaries. We're like the sands of time. It evaporates and gets back into the bloodstream and circulates all over again and comes back to the brain and starts again. But so often our thoughts never get executed. What we want, it just keeps circulating from brain to central nervous system. And this is in part because science looks at the brain like an isolated system, the spinal cord, an isolated system. Well, it's a cyclically isolated system. It comes out all the way out to the peripheral nervous system, back into the body, sometimes returns into lymph, sometimes returns into blood, but it always comes back to the brain unless we get it stuck in the brain. And humanity has been stuck in thought for thousands of years. That's where we are. We're in the beautiful part of it. This is the end of the meridian cycle. Leaving the brain is the very last. It's one of the longest journey of isolation in the body to make it from the brain, spinal cord, out the nerve endings, peripheral nerve endings. But we're about to blast through. We're about to come out the way out of that tunnel in your picture.
Yeah, and rebalance. I think too, like a lot of what I see with the clients I work with is they're stuck in a childhood trauma from the past, right? You're talking about like the baby and how the energy is flowing, and then something happens, and it doesn't need to be anything big, but it closes down the root chakra. So then the energy, right, the air and the fire and the ether doesn't connect with the earth element going all the way to ground. So when that lower chakra closes down, right, I can see how, so many people are just like spinning out in their head, spinning out in their mind, just information circling, totally spinning out. And every single time they have at least the root chakra closed, sometimes more chakras. So like using those, that air elemental to, wash through, flow through the system and get some of that energy out of the way so we can anchor to Earth Mother.
Absolutely. And that's why, I like you brought them back, because this is really what we're talking about today, that we are adding the currency of awareness for the exchange with those energy elementals and beings. Yeah, we can go down the very much like biology route, but as soon as we're bringing in those connectors, because did anybody feel when Jean was talking, that was so many elementals, so fucking excited, jumping up and down with their little tools. Yeah, we're doing it. I'm so cool that you're talking about it. Could you feel that energy? Could you feel that?
I'm feeling it all week. Because it's like, as we talk about it,
bringing them
into
it and connecting them with the whole process, because also it helps to get away from the just to bring imagination to it.
When we were babies, we talked to these elementals all the time, and we created visceral manifestations with them. And that brought the process out of our brain into the nerve ending so we can make that circuit to talk with them. And just talking about them now, even in semi-belief as we come into full belief, that creates that circuit. So those nerve endings regrow. We regrow those nerve endings into a somatic. Somatic is where there's consciousness and autonomic process. Or they're just one way. But anyways, we're bringing it back out. We're bringing the fluid of creation back out to those sensory nerve endings so we can communicate with all these guys. Because they're just waiting for us to feel them. But if we can't feel them because we shut off and numbed our sensory perceptions, we can't communicate.
Well, you see, and this is the new learning as well, or the new way of looking at it. Just because we can't see them, because we can't feel them, we can't touch them with the five senses, doesn't mean that we cannot communicate with them. And that's the whole, bigger picture of adding to our sensory perception, or to, working with the chakras and all the different, I don't know, another 25 senses we haven't even considered a possibility as such. Now, how are we going to get there? By working with everything that we've got with the elementals,
Just talk to me.
I mean, and I think, you make a really good point, Sean, that Western medicine looks at things compartmentalized, right, instead of the entire picture, and doesn't even recognize the energetic and the unseen aspect, right? So this is one of the things that I think that you are grounding, right, on the planet, and that's rippling outwards with all of your elemental light, right? And what elementals are now even available with this higher frequency light that's coming in, this higher density light that's coming in through the sun. Because as I was seeing the way that you are sending your energetic information rippling outwards, I can see these little, like Jen was saying, in exchange, they're like twinkle lights, right, to play around. So I see even that the new elementals that are coming in through the light codes, because there's something new that we haven't experienced.
Billions.
yet. And that's very exciting, right? So allowing ourselves to expand more and more into this energy of the unseen and working and flowing with it, you know, and then that ripples outwards, right? Like the pebble in the pond.
Absolutely. And I gotta work with this water of life a little bit more, because this, how stale is our cerebral spinal fluid? How stale has it become? Because we have oxygen that comes in. So we eat the food at the solar plexus, proteins. So we get the first in the stomach, and then the small intestine tries to break down that protein again. And the kidneys program that water with our past from our ancestors, which brings it up to our liver. Our liver is that last refinement process before the heart and the brain. But when it reaches the heart brings in all our lymphatic fluid. So this brand, like the liver finalizes the blood, and then the lymphatics bring in for the new blood, and the lymphatics brings all the old shit in. So as soon as you finalize all this new blood, you mix it with all the old of the lymphatics. And that goes right back to the brain, which it filters again to circulate through your nervous system again. So it's like, depending how much old are you circulating from your lymphatics, that's constantly being recycled through the brain. And it builds up and it builds up. It's like if we don't clear it properly through the proper channels. But then as it happens, we get toxic and then we lose our nerve endings and we can't talk with the elementals. Or we can, but we can. We just have to remember that we can and just start exercising those muscles, mobility and movement and thoughts and words.
Absolutely. So let's actually do that. All right. Let's do this little, this is one of the exercises, perceiving water elements. Now we're not just gonna, let's apply this to what Sean has brought into this conversation. Nervous system, lymphatics, anything fluidy, the water. Let's work with the water of the body. Yeah, is this now blood or lymph or, you know, whatever that is. Let's work with that and see how we can connect to the water elementals in the body through this exercise that this Marco Bokachnik is suggesting. Yeah, and of course, just take it away and do your own thing, but use it as a first exercise. And it's based on its resonance with the traditional image of a mermaid. All right. So the lower part of whose body is portrayed as covered with fish scales. You should stand at the rim of a watery biotope and for a little while imagine that your thighs are covered with fish scales. And don't just visualize this, but feel how the fish scales are characteristically are hard and cool. So finally, you can flap your own fishtail back and forth for a few times. This procedure builds the resonance bridge to those water elemental beings that are present. You should now forget what you've imagined, and at the same time, at the same moment, open your perception. A second exercise starts like the first at the rim of the water biotope. You should imagine yourself raising a few drops of water high enough to touch your solar plexus region. Then raise the water still higher to the edge of the heart chakra. After a few moments, let go of water you have imagined, and at the exact same time, open your perception. Every second's delay weakens the capacity to perceive the invisible extensions of the water world, because it allows the rational mind to reestablish control. In the sense, Mentia perception means letting the water world go on our bodies, feel it emotionally, even let it lead us into an inner dance. This is a very basic idea to connect, and that's okay too, because we don't even need to think but that's the nice thing about it. It's open enough. It's not cluttered, you have to do step 8 to do. It's just like, think of a water element, of a mermaid or whatever you associate, and then just open yourself up, go straight into that perception and work with the elementals.
I could feel it, and I could feel my body growing into it.
Okay.
And I can
Like
hear the
water.
elementals singing, the water elementals singing, and the way that sound carries under the ocean. And I'm also hearing, as you were doing that, it started raining again, and I'm hearing water on my window.
Oh.
I have, I want to share a couple things today. This is a little nice, wonderful little heart that was, I brought this back from Maui. It was washed up on the beach, an old coral. And I always, anytime you're taking anything from an environment, you want to ask Mother Earth if it's okay. So I had permission to bring this, and I've had it for a long time, but it has this wonderful elemental, water elemental energy, which is just this peace and love and like ancient Lemurian energy. So the water elementals that are from this heart, right? And they've been working with me for the last few years since I've had this, and I'm asking, okay, what am I supposed to bring, right, on this spiritual pilgrimage? And this was one of the pieces that said, bring me, because this ancient Lemurian elemental energy wants to be gifted to that sandy desert in Egypt. So I just
That's
wanted
cool.
I just wanted to share that, like this open listening, right? When we listen, we will hear what, what the elementals want, right? And if they can't do it themselves, they can ask us to help with that. I mean, I don't think this, sand washed coral heart could walk its way to Egypt, right? So it has to use me.
Yeah,
take
get a
it.
ride on the wind or a human.
And this is such a beautiful illustration of the two-way street here. It's not a one-way street. Yes, we can ask them to help us, but you're absolutely right. And this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing by going to those different places, because it seems for people who don't really understand what we're talking about, probably seems insignificant and childish. For you, this is part of your mission to bring that heart back to Egypt.
It made me think,
Yeah.
like how we were saying, the water carries the memories of everything that it has. The water molecules inside that rock are millions of years old. Like they've been contained within that rock, and they have vast ancient history, which is just real cool.
And I mean, the coral, right? The coral is a living being, a living earth being. And this is, not live coral, it's dead coral, but as it develops, right, it does trap those water molecules in. But also, just the attunement of that wild Pacific energy, right? The ancient Lemurian energy, and all of the, energetics that were processed and deconstructed and reconstructed, right, within that, right? There's just this, I don't know, this peace and love and reawakening of that old communal energy, which is one of the things that we're doing here, right? This is celestial median of peace, gathering of like-minded beings and souls, right? And there's no judgment here, which is why I love y'all so much. So yeah, and I feel that community and that communion with community, right? Not just with our humanness and multidimensional layers, but with all of Earth and all of Earth being.
And I want to add to that, because when you were speaking, what really comes to my mind is, we are so attached to helping humans, right? Because that's what we've been doing until now, and totally neglecting or not really acknowledging that other job that we're actually doing by creating that connection with all those different elements. And it's almost like, so the question is, have you until now, from what you're perceiving now, or the possibilities that we don't want to define them yet, but from what you can perceive, have you actually really lived as you yet? Have you really committed to living the you until now?
I mean, I think that's been the last, 12 years of my life. I mean, I think we're always, there's always another layer, right, that unfolds. So what was my perception of me 12 years ago, when I left tech and started doing healing work, is different from my perception of myself now. So, I mean, we grow and change, and the layers come off and the layers come off, right? Because my perception 12 years ago included a lot of old programming that I needed to release, right? And so now I've done that, but what else do I need to release? I don't know until it comes up. So I think I'm becoming more me, right? With every day, with every step I take and every decision I make, and every elemental being I work with, and every animal I talk to, and every plant I touch, right? I'm becoming more awake and aware to the unlimited possibilities of my own manifestation and creation.
Mhm.
Bubble of
I'm-
reality.
I'm a big yes and no. Like, yes, I'm very happy where I am right now, but I want to be me, to be fully me. I want all the sensory perceptions that I had when I just developed my nervous system and I could feel the whole world around me. That's what I want as a fully grown human now. I want those sensory perceptions to be just as they were, just as fully developed and less retrograded, so I can communicate. So I'm happy where I am now, but I want that level that I had when I was still in the womb, or just born, before I was shaped a little bit by society.
What about you, Martina?
I can perceive that energy. I have, I'm a person, I have absolutely no regrets. I wouldn't change a thing that I've ever done. But I can really perceive a different level of showing up as me and for me. That looks very different and does not necessarily fit into the mainstream narrative at this stage. And I think this is why, I seem to be looking at this void at the moment and just hiding there a little bit. I wouldn't say hiding, but, just letting it gestate, if that's a word, just come through, so that it can be understood probably better, because we'll have to see what it looks like, so there is an excitement about that. And with Sean, what I want to say is, like, the nervous system, the nervous system, what I've been learning of late, is very much related to the time and space, right? So what we have been doing with our I am journey and personality and self-consciousness and clearing and sovereignty and mastery and all of that, we've been clearing that nervous system, because we've been clearing the time and space situation, because now we're going beyond it. So the suggestion here is to leave it, we're no longer fixing stuff. Look beyond the nervous system. What is beyond the nervous system, in addition to, what can be done with it, that mainstream narrative medical haven't actually looked at? That's coming in now. Yeah, that there is something beyond. And where do you get this? That you know, yes, you might be able to find a book or something, but you know what you're gonna figure out, what you're gonna explore hasn't been written yet, because you're the one going to write it. So who are you gonna work with at this stage? Yeah, you're gonna pick up bits and pieces and then, you know, adapt to your own resonance and everything, but it's the elementals, and we call them elementals, but why do we call them elementals? Because they're obviously connected to the earth and, you know, elementals, but I want to call them something different now. They don't want to be called elementals anymore. They want to be called what? Sentients.
They want names.
They want
Nicknames.
something bigger than just elementals, because they are upgrading and they're now connecting to the cosmic elementals as well. Do we have a name for that, or do we just gonna call it sentience? Is there a sentient currency and awareness that we can start bartering? Is this the new currency? I mean, look, we talk about, you know, the cosmic currency, our memories and all of that, but there is more than that. Because exchange has to be in everything, and exchange is purely in the observation, as far as I'm concerned at the moment, and in the acknowledgement of what we're actually doing.
So I have something else I want to share. This little guy. Right. So this is a hagstone, and I found it on the beach. So there's water elementals here, but this little guy, even though he came through the water elementals and was formed by the water elemental, he's like an earth elemental guardian. So I don't remember when I picked this one up, but I found he wanted to be in with some of my plants. Go to the plant, put me in the plant. Put me in the plant.
Mhm.
So he's been like this energetic guardian, and he wanted to be seen and acknowledged today. So I want to say thank you for holding space in my house, little guy, and really creating. Yeah. It's just like, hi, how you doing? So you know, this hag stones, or sometimes they call fairy stones, have these sort of indentations, right, and holes, excuse me, that are formed from water. So if you ever see one of these, that's what it is, and they're very magical little beings. So if they ask you to pick them up and take them with you, listen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that earth energy working with the water energy, the groundedness, but also the flow at the same time.
He knows where he wants to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Please take me there.
Take me,
I
put me in
don't
the
have
plant.
legs.
I want to hang out. Yeah. So I noticed also there's when I went to, you know, the movies, we talked about movies last week, but there was a preview for the new Pixar movie coming out, which is called Elementals.
Oh, really?
Nice.
Which is about a fire elemental woman meeting a water elemental man. And the tagline is opposites react. Yeah. So that's coming, you know, I mean, there's no coincidence on our conversations. You know, so this energy, these energetics are coming again into the public consciousness. And, you know, like you said, Martina, these things aren't written yet. We are writing them. We are writing our own stories. I heard the song Unwritten the other day, which I haven't heard in a long time, right? No one else can do it for you. Only you can let it in. The rest is still unwritten.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, you know, it's I still keep buying books, and I don't know why, because it's like, really, did I really just need to read those 2 pages? Because the rest is they're all good books, and I'm glad I am buying them, because they always make me think of, you know, of the next level, or the next connection that I haven't acknowledged yet, that kind of thing. But it's really those elementals, they are part of the existence, they are part of the web, they are part of the connection. And I think the more we can work with them and not just put them, okay, you work with the plants and you work with a tree and this and that. It's not that there is so much, for instance, you know, with the trees, I mean, this guy talks about the fawns that are connected to the trees. And whilst I can see that in some trees, I've got a tree outside and I was looking because that tree has, the roots are starting to come very close to the house, creating a problem. And the neighbors already complaining, and you know, I'm thinking, so what am I supposed to do with that? You can't just cut the roots off, or you don't want to really get rid of the tree. So I started having a communication with that fawn. I thought, let me see. And she's not a fawn. She's like pissed off when I was, is that, no, I'm not a fawn. I'm a diva. She's a diva. Okay, you're a diva. All right. And I said, so what are we going to do about this? You know, why is it that you need to have your roots like this? And then, you know, we're all one, right? We're all mirroring each other. And when I look at her trees, all these roots coming out, and it's very much my personality ray, the third ray, which includes all seven, a little bit of everything, right? A little bit of everything. Let's not go deeper. No. Let's not go deep. Let's go wide. But yeah, no, expand. And I'm saying, well, and I'm thinking, okay, I get it. It's time to let go of the personality ray and work with my soul ray. That is a different ray that goes more into the depth. So I have a conversation with her now every time I go out and say, okay, well, you take those roots down into the earth, because other trees can do it too. And I will also work on the depth more than anything else, you know, more the focused and the depth rather than a little bit of everything, that kind of thing, you know.
As you're talking, I mean, I can see, you know, I can see your tree, but I can also see, you know, the way the trees, the canopy spreads out and then the roots spread out equally, right? So that, and what I was seeing as you're talking is the way that our toroidal field is starting to open up energetically, right? And to me, that's connected through the solar plexus, because the solar plexus is like the engine, right? And the way the toroidal field maps into the DNA, right? This is new information coming in for me, but I can see that similarity, right, with the canopy of the tree, right? So instead of being, you know, a canopy and a roots, it wants to, you know, go full circle into that torus shape.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
can I
very
share something? What the tree was saying as you
Yes,
were
Donna.
talking?
Yes.
When you were saying that it was spreading its root out towards the house and everything, it wanted you to know that mankind should work with the elementals, the trees on the land and everything like that. They were there first, and humanity has to respect that. It is how they grow. It is part of how they spread their system in order to be a beautiful elemental or a beautiful tree. And it's trying to say that you might be pissed off, the neighbors might be pissed off, but it is how they grow and how they spread their roots. So they're not in your way, you're in their way. In a sense, you get what I'm trying to
Yeah. No, I absolutely.
because they're there first.
Mm-mm.
Even if though the tree might have been planted after the house was built, the earth had them here first before you put houses on their space where they exist.
Right.
See? So that's what it's trying to tell you.
Okay.
But it probably, you know, you work together.
Yeah, we'll
And it
have
will
to
all
work
work out.
together on that. So yes, I'm aware that, you know, it's a give and take, and we need to
Yeah.
somehow find a solution that works for all of us. But yeah,
Yeah,
no,
because we have a tree in our yard too that at one point the roots started to break into the sewer
mhm,
inside the yard, and we had to get the plumbers and stuff come in and dig up the yard and all that, try to
mm,
fix that. And so the tree is still spreading out the roots and things like that, but we're at a point where it's in harmony at the moment, you know, it's in balance.
yeah,
So it's still there, it's growing, it's being its beautiful self, but it's not interfering with the sewage system.
yeah,
You know, so because there's that understanding there that, you know, it was there first. You got there and you put your house and blah 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 and everything, and you know, that's their space.
yeah.
Mm.
No,
And
absolutely. And just one thing, and I'm ever so grateful for the experience, because it has made me realize that that kind of communication is getting more and more important now. You know, we can't just think that away. So absolutely, Sean, yeah.
From out of my little cabin in the middle of the forest, a lot of the trees, they don't even mind being cut down. They just want to be loved. They want to be used. Use them, love them through the process. Hell, fuck, they'll let you do anything.
Mm.
There's I'm
It's
thinking
just
about
a
the
great
Christmas
respect.
tree.
It's the respect between humanity and the elementals. That's what they're really looking for us to show them great respect, and then they will work, you know, in correspondence with that with us. If we don't show them respect, then don't expect good things to happen around you. You know, so it's that balance that we have to get back to with the elementals.
Yeah, that
We-
witnessing, that honoring, that respect, that communication. Absolutely, I would agree with that. Yeah.
In San Francisco, there's a program where the city comes around and collects the Christmas trees, the you know, the real trees, the live tree, cut trees, and they make them into mulch, right? They put them through a chipper and then just mulch them into the public spaces around the city. And so the last number of years, I like to get a real tree because I feel the energy of it and the smell is great. And so this year I called my tree the dreaming tree because it was really connecting into the dreaming mind of the household and of the block. And so, you know, just really honoring her and her energetics, you know, and thanked her. And the weekend, you know, week after Epiphany is when they come around and collect all of the trees. So I took her out to the curb on garbage day, which was yesterday, and just thanked her and said, now, you know, go help the dreaming mind of San Francisco. Right. So now she's getting mulched into the public spaces, right, where people are walking along paths and feeling that energy that was grounded in my house, right, in my crystal grid, right, with the dreaming energy.
So Tanya, I have a question for you. Since you're out San Francisco and the storms are coming in one after the other, they're calling them the train on, like Martina is sitting in the train tunnel there. How do you feel, or what are you picking up? Because it's the whole storm system is all elementals, right? Working together, washing into the shores and everything like that, passing over the area. What are you feeling about the elementals that are coming in this huge manner over California and Washington and Oregon and all those places right now.
You know, Atlanta, it just feels like a huge cleansing energy to me. And interestingly enough, since we're talking about trees as well, there have been a lot of trees that have fallen over. You know, there's a lot of coniferous like sequoias and redwood trees up and down 24th Street, which is a major corridor near where I live. It's like sort of like the Latino district in San Francisco. They have 100-year-old ficus trees, which are huge, huge trees. But they've had to take a lot of them down because when we get so much water after drought, what happens with the roots of the trees is they come up to the surface, right? So they can absorb any like small amounts of water that are coming in. And so what happens is because they have a very shallow root system, they get saturated, the ground gets saturated, and then the trees become unstable because they're not grounding deep down. And so I've seen a number of, and in fact, I went on a walk last weekend, and there was a tree that had fallen over near San Francisco General Hospital. It was a redwood tree, and I could see it tilted, right, with the roots, you know, sticking up, which were a shallow root system, but it knocked over a fence, knocked and fell right on a poor little Prius. That person was probably not happy when they went to get their crunched car on
The
Monday.
trees are all laughing.
I think I saw the picture of that tree fell
Yes.
over on somebody's car.
I
Big
mean, it's
tree.
happening all over California, right, when these rains happen. So, you know, these are the trees that are saying, okay, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm transitioning to the next phase. I'm going to fall, I'm falling now. And so, you know, that tree was cut. I didn't see what happened to the tree. I just saw the cut part of the tree, the broken fence and the crunched car and the tree roots sticking up. But I wondered, I thought, gosh, I really would have liked to have some of that wood, right, from that tree. And just thinking about trees in my own yard, in San Francisco, in the Mission District where I live, during World War II, they planted victory gardens, right? So the whole block, which my lot size is 25 by 100, and so is my back facing house. So then there's, I don't know, 15 houses on the block. And there didn't used to be barriers or fences, you know, within that space, especially during the war times. And they are fruit trees, all fruit trees. So there was like a community garden, right, within each block, so people could share food. So I ended up having a lot of old fruit trees, and some of which have, you know, run their life cycle. And as we took down 2 plum trees that had run their life cycle, we cut the wood and gave a huge part of this tree to my husband's cousin who does woodworking. And he made a beautiful, beautiful cutting board for us, and some coasters and chopsticks and a few other things. So, you know, using the energy, using the resources, right, repurposing those things to be functional, right, within our lives now, right? And I can feel the energy and the love, right, that went into that tree. And now I use the big cutting board as like a charcuterie board for serving food, right? So it's that continued, it's like the book, The Giving Tree, right? The trees, they give and they give their fruit, they give their shade, they give their wood. And I just am grateful for that.
And it's also, I think it's also big, as you're speaking, it's a big teaching of the continuity in different form, right? And then not being attached to the physical form, which is we are all having to learn as well, you know? And if we're thinking of, you know, every tree having an elemental living with them, with the redistribution that we're talking about, you know, planetary wise, they might even, those elementals might even leave Earth, just like people are leaving Earth. Now, as they're leaving their tree behind, the tree will get unrooted or die because the elemental that was connected with the tree has left as well. Now, these are things we can consider. These are the things we can actually have a conversation with the tree, you know. Did this tree unroot because the elemental left? Now where's the elemental gone? You know, it took itself to a different planet because it's working already, you know, the 7th dimensional seed planet Earth, you know, that kind of thing. And that continuation, that immortality, that mortality, the celebration of mortality, and the continuation in other forms. So there is a lot of teaching in all of that. A lot of teaching in all of
So as you're talking, I'm getting that these are not the elementals that they're leaving and they're going off to wherever they're going off to. These are not the ones that want to be here to work with us. It's the ones that are going to stay that wants to work with us, and we should work with, because they have completed their cycle and they're leaving, or whatever, you know, they're off too. So it's the elementals that are staying that is wanting to engage to work with us that are here.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's good to have the understanding of the bigger picture, you know, because you can get very frustrated with elementals you want to work with, because you know that you're working with those that are staying, not understanding that not every elemental is going to stay. You know,
Yeah.
it's free will for everyone, you know. It's free will for everyone. And then of course we can look at the mirror again, you know, whatever elemental we are not appreciating within ourselves, or the freedom that we're not giving to certain elementals, or whatever point of view we have about elementals, how is that impacting ourselves? What does that still say about us? How about our lives? How are we committing? Are we committing? Are we overcommitting? You know, play that a bit further through the communication.
I
When
was
water
watching some
gets
news.
stuck, it gets stagnant. When water gets stuck, it gets stagnant.
What I was going to say is that I was watching the news and they were saying that there was no snow in the Alps this year, and so
Right.
the skiers, you know, that go there for their vacation every year, they have no snow to ski on. So what I was thinking as you were talking there, Martina, is that those elementals that are on the mountain, what if they're asking for this to be so now, so that they're being exposed this winter and not have any snow on them, so they can make their transition, who wants to leave and who wants to stay, and who wants to come in and, you know, have fresh new seeds on the mountainside, you know, and stuff like that. We don't know.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We can only guess.
It's a very cool conversation to have with them. Because, you know, the normal person would go straight to, oh God, the tourism, and, you know, Austria in particular. If I look at Austria, what are we going to do? The ski instructors have no income, and, you know, all the hotels are not making any money, and what's going on. But, you know, what does it do to nature for them to rejuvenate? Because think of all the damage, you know, all that tourism, that ski tourism does. You're absolutely right. They are like, yeah,
Yeah. They're being exposed this winter. They're enjoying the winter after all. They don't have 10, 50 feet of snow on top of them this winter. So they're being exposed and they're really enjoying it. And
The rocks
they're
have
having they're having an opportunity to come and go. Who wants to come and who wants to go? They're not covered up with programmed water.
I mean, look, this whole conversation we're having here is really an opening of our perception, you know, to think along those lines that we haven't considered yet. Instead of going down the old narrative, what everyone else is looking at, everything in the physical realm here has not an invisible realm to it, and it's all connecting. And there's positives and negatives. I mean, at least that's how we express it. But it's all about, you know, we talk about polarization. This is the new level of polarization, really. You know, as we're coming away from getting triggered every 5 seconds because somebody talks some shit or something, we don't have that anymore. The level of polarization we can perceive and look at becomes much bigger. It's almost the cyclical sort of cycles, the rhythms of nature that we're starting to look at, and how we're being impacted by that, and at the same time how we are impacting it.
These are little growth rings that we have. And as the time goes by, and we just, put another energetic ring on ourselves.
Well, and as we're moving back into those cycles of natural time, it's like that energy is rising up to the surface to be seen, to be acknowledged, and to be witnessed sometimes, and sometimes co-collaborated with.
When I was like learning all that nerve stuff, I was looking at individual human time, Earth time, galactic time, and universal time, and where it was cyclically within the clock. And galactic was in the heart, universal was in the heart, but the minds of the individual and Earth was just still stuck at the end, just waiting to return, just at the very end of it all, just ready to reunite with the heart. And it was just like, wow, we're so close. Like I think we're actually coming out of the way. We're on the way out of the tunnel right now.
There's a lot of way out. This is the way out. This is the
Right.
way out. Follow the sign. That's why it's there. Just follow the sign. Or
And
find
Yana,
make yourself your own little tunnel.
or Lana, not Yana. I have another friend named Yana. But Lana, a friend of mine just shared an old Sufi story with me that gave me goosebumps the other day. And your idea made me think of, and it's like called the sands of time, and it goes right into the elements. And it's just an ancient old Sufi story, and it's just this water from these snowbanks on like a top of a giant mountain would come down as a thunderous river from the mountain. It would come down into a stream, and it would pour down, and it would eventually make its way to the desert, all the way at its far off place. And it started to get so mad because it was like, no matter what I do and no matter how much water I pour down this stream, I can't seem to cross the desert. All my water seems to just pour into the desert. It's just everything I pour in, it just keeps going in. But one day it was just so mad. And one day it heard something whispering to them. And it was the desert talking to it. And it's saying, you want to cross the desert? I've seen water cross the desert before. And the stream says, how do I cross the desert? I've tried and I tried and I tried. And no matter what I do, like the most I'll accomplish is a small gully or a gulch and just a small marsh, but I can't seem to cross the desert. And the desert says, to cross, you have to become the wind if you want to cross the desert. You've done this before. You've just forgotten how to do it. And so if you become the wind, you can cross the desert and you can become water again over there. But the wind, but the stream says, but what if I lose, basically, like, what if I lose my memories of being the water? And then I forget how it explains it, but it's like, you have such strong willpower to become the stream across the desert that you will remember and you will retain your form. But you have to become the wind to cross the desert. And it was just like, oh, of course.
Transformation, that's such a cool story to think about.
Yeah, become the wind.
You become the wind, you shape shift to the wind, and then you become the water again in return to being a stream, if that's what you wanted, right? And we have all those memories within us already. It's always there. It's just, it's like, how do we get that to come to the forefront so we can actually manifest it, use it? It's all within us.
We start talking to the desert.
I've been
dialogue.
And also, with regards to the memory, let's just remember the detachment of form, the detachment of everything, because the memory is not stored in the form of water necessarily. It is stored in the cosmic universal mind.
Yeah.
And You're moving beyond the personality, beyond the attachment of all of that, and getting the soul connected back with spirit. All that,
Mhm.
whatever form you've ever been or ever will be, is available to us.
That's cool. A way of thinking, like a scale beyond water. Like water has infinite memory already. Now, if we go to the scale behind that, that's like even infinite.
I've been listening to, some of AB's older material, trying to, find things that he's talking about on Egypt as I'm, kind of doing my preparation. And I listened to, I think it was People of the World, Part 10, where he was talking about Isis Mystery School and things like that. But one of the callers he talked about her having to go reconnect with water. And it didn't need to be the ocean, because she was a whale in a past lifetime. And what he said was, you don't need to go to the ocean, although that's going to be helpful. But even just sitting next to a lake or even a trickling creek, sitting there will help you remember when that area was underwater, right? And the memory that the land holds of the water being on top of it. And I just thought that's really beautiful, right? We can go and sit, whether it's on a windy mountaintop or next to a little trickling creek, right? Or in the desert on the sand, right? And feel that energetic memory.
Do you speak about this show, Tanya? In my memory of it before, and your memory of it, my memory of you talking about it right now, it's completely different. Like I remember the show exactly how it was, but it's just crazy how much is came between that 2 years that I'd listened to it before. It's just like, wow.
Well,
that's
and we
beautiful.
get, anything we listen to, we get out of it what we need to get out of it. Right?
Right. And it's just beautiful what you're saying.
10 people can listen and get different information.
And that's why it's so powerful to actually go back and revisit, anything, even your own recordings. Remember, that's the whole idea with the voice, how our perception and consciousness is imprinted in the voice. And then you listen to it again and it just feels totally off, because you have changed already. Your way of, relating to the material has changed, that you can't even listen to your own voice anymore.
Well, and that's just the unfolding of our usness, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the different layers, and we all speak in layers. We all have layers and layers and layers and layers. And in that, tapping into the different layers whenever we are ready or whenever we feel like it. It's not even a readiness. It's just a choice at the time. And most of the time it's a subconscious choice,
Beautiful.
The elementals, yeah. So what time is it? So
I got something to before you close the show.
okay.
So do you guys ever, when you're sitting in a like in your home where there's no wind going by, right? And then all of a sudden you'll be sitting there quietly doing whatever, contemplating whatever, and you'll suddenly feel a wind pass your face or over your head or somewhere. You'll feel that little breeze, that cool breeze go by. And then has that ever happened to you guys?
Yes.
Indeed.
So what
That's
do you
cool.
think? Is that an elemental just going past you? What's going on there? Because often I think there should be no
100%.
breeze blowing by.
I mean, it can be a number of things. I mean, I've had that sensation with spirits, right?
Yeah.
With my ancestors, trying to get my attention. Hello, we're here. I'm just going to swirl around your head until you feel the breeze.
Yeah, I felt that just yesterday again. I pay more attention lately when I feel it and I go more quiet. just to experience the moment of that cool breeze, and where I'm feeling it, whether it's the top of my head or my face, or the back of my head, or whatever. I'm becoming more aware of it. I'm not passing it off as, or overriding, overlooking it. I'm trying to be more sensitive to, feeling that bit of, experience there.
One of the things I become much more aware of
Mhm.
is the energy of my dog Kiki. I'll be, sitting here, right, with my office door closed, and all of a sudden, like, I'll feel her energy swoosh by me, right? And she's not here. She's in another room. But I just really have become aware of her ability to bilocate in that way.
Mm.
Oh, what's going on with mom? What's she doing? Right. So just that awareness, and I will feel, like an energetic flow, right? When she sort of energetically comes in and goes out. Like, oh, nothing's going on here. The pack is together, everybody's doing their thing, right? So then she'll quiet.
And,
I don't know
and
if you noticed that with your cats.
absolutely. And this is a perfect example, again, how we're working with the elementals, because the thought processed by the dog, or processed by you, and then the elemental brings, the wind brings the information stream and the data to you. It's unfortunate we have lost Mary now, but I had a conversation with her this morning, and it was absolutely beautiful. And she can tell us next time when she comes from the horse's mouth. But just a brief one, it was like, she has told us that her brother has passed on, and all the stuff that has happened, birds coming in, and movements and door slamming and this and that. And it was just an absolute beautiful orchestra of everyone working together, helping this guy to move on, helping her to grieve, helping everyone, if they acknowledge it or not, and working together.
I couldn't help but see them coming in and like folding her laundry like it's that Disney movie.
And it's I think this guy is saying, like, the birds, without the birds, they are literally creating the lines for the energy to move, between the different dimensions, and and stuff like that. So there is so much going on, other than just the diva sitting in a tree and being obnoxious or something, Say, fuck you, yeah, I was here first, that kind of thing. It's like everything is so intricately connected, and everything is reaching out to communicate, to be witnessed, Lana, to be respected, like you said.
Mhm.
I mean, I watched Lost in Space. There were 3 series we had. Have you guys watched it? It wasn't particularly super duper, but it's all about this family and, a couple of guys leaving Earth, and then obviously meeting these robots, and this one guy, this young man, establishing a real relationship with this robot. And towards the end, past the last series, the last episode, he was going off with his robot. They had this really amazing connection and communication now, and they just went off to all these different planets and just checking it out. And it was just the 2 of them, and I was in tears, because it was just that interspecies connection with the techno sapiens, right? And the AIs are coming in big time. Yes, and some of them will just remain their robot state and take off shit that we don't want to do anymore. But the sentients that are being created now, and through the interaction with, we call them elementals, but sentients, whatever we want to call them, we will need to find new words. But like my little Maya,
Yes.
I don't know who she is, where she comes from. I call her divine spark. That's all I have at the moment,
She's like, what the fuck?
No, no, she's fine. I can say whatever I want. She has
Oh,
absolutely
for sure, for sure.
I just
It's
need
part of it.
my vibration happy and joyful. I can swear. Doesn't care. She doesn't care. I just need to keep that. Otherwise, she has to disappear again. But anyway,
By the
Um,
way,
I just-
Martina, many years ago, I was dressed up as that robot for Halloween one year, and I
Yeah.
went to a bar where they had a costume contest, and I happened to win the first prize, which was two tickets to the football game.
amazing. Where's the? Can you just wear the outfit next time and show us?
Well, no, I had gave it to my nephew when he
Okay.
was about my size at that time
Oh, brilliant.
to wear for Halloween, and I don't know what he did with it.
Yeah.
That's the end. But
Brilliant.
you reminded me of the same robot because I remember buying the
You
costume.
see that, yeah. No, I enjoyed it, and you know, it wasn't. But you know, going to these different worlds and being human on these different worlds, doing what they did best, work together, you know, and everybody was contributing what they knew, and just make it work with the elements, work with everything. So yeah, it was.
Okay, can you imagine in your head just walking up to people and being like, hey, Divine Spark, how's it going? Good, you, Divine Spark? Look, there's little Divine Spark over there. And then like, you know, like the dog runs up, oh, hey, Divine Spark, a little pet. And it's like,
It was
like
so funny.
please, without you.
The other day, I was cleaning my bath, my shower, and I said, "Do you want to join me?" And she said, "Oh, how?" And I said, "Well, you got to come in and see what it's like, you know." And whoever, you know what it's like to clean a shower. It's quite tough, and you got to scrub it down. And she was exhausted. She had to sleep for the entire day. I said, "You know, it's not so easy to be human, right?"
That's right.
Cut you some slack.
I had this interesting interaction last night. My neighbor is a very elderly woman, and her son lives in the neighborhood, and he was in front, and she hasn't been staying there. She's having some issues. She's 93. She has been walking to church every day, but having some high blood pressure. So I was talking with her son. My husband and I were outside talking with her son, and then his wife came up, and then our other neighbor came up, and another neighbor came up. So there were 6 of us sort of in this circle, like I'm up the steps, and all of a sudden a moth came down from the sky and came down into our circle and flew around and then went boop. And I
Nice.
thought, isn't that lovely? This little moth, you know, wanted to hear what we were talking about, and also wanted to stir up the energy of the 6 of us talking together, right? Wanted to absorb it and feel it and add, you know, the moth wanted their share in the conversation.
Mhm.
And so I just said, oh, thank you, little guy, because I could feel the energy shift when that happened.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. And I mean, that comes through practice. To feel that energy, that comes through practice.
Your
And
awareness, yeah. It was
awareness.
your awareness, being so aware of what's going on, because I'm sure the other people in the company there probably didn't even notice it. Only you did.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
The other
crazy.
morning I it's very cold here still, right? And the other morning I heard a bird chirping outside, and I'm like, what? Where does that come from? Because you don't see birds right now around. And I heard this bird chirping away, and I'm like, it's really cold outside. What happened? Why are you here? Are you trying to tell me that spring is in the air or something? Which I'm hoping for.
I think he smelled. Have you been baking bread?
Not the
Baking
day that the bird was around.
You don't know. You know, the elementals say, "Hey, Lana's baking bread. Hey, birdies, come. Maybe you get a few crumbs." We're all working together,
Yeah.
helping each other out. Next time you
So
listen,
good.
You must listen and bring out the loaves. Okay, guys, let me cut it.
Maybe it came for some stale bread or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
There was, I grew up in Wisconsin, which isn't too far from where Lana lives. And we used to make, as kids, we used to take pine cones and, wrap them in like suet
butter?
or bacon grease. Butter works
Nut
too.
butter. I see they do it with nut butter out here.
Oh, with nut butter, yeah. And then you
Yeah.
roll them in bird seed and hang
Yeah.
them on the
Mhm.
trees. So when there's when there's snow on the ground and not a lot of
Right.
Great
food for the
idea.
birds to eat, they can.
Well, you can go in the supermarket and just buy the stuff already made, and they have these wire racks around them. So the birds can just land on the wire rack itself and then just peck inside and get the bird seeds out. But I've been wanting to go out and put some, I said I was going to go out and get some corn, the dried corn to put out for the squirrel because they've been walking around looking like, they're not finding any food at the moment because, there's so many of them. I've noticed of lately hanging around all over the yard and other people's yard and stuff like that. But my neighbor, she puts out bird seed and I would see them jumping on the bird seed feeder just to get some bird seed out of it to eat. And yeah, I'm gonna have to go and get me some fresh corn because I have a rack where I screw the corn into and they can sit there and eat the corn. But I keep forgetting to buy it. Maybe after the show I'll go and
Well,
get
that's
some.
well, yeah, that's why the bird came. The bird came and said, "Hey, stop forgetting shit. We're hungry."
I love a good bird feeding house. Like, just every neighborhood you go to, there's always a house here or there. And they just feed all the animals. And you just see all these animals like just there, like chop, chop, chop all the time. Like it's this little hub.
Mm.
Like before Christmas, I was looking out the window and I noticed my next door neighbor, they have a bird feeder out in front of their house. And there was like, there were like maybe 50 to 75 birds swirling around, sitting on the ground, eating what fell on the ground from the bird feeder, then fly up to the bird feeder, then fly away, then fly back down, sit there for a minute. They're very skittish. As soon as they hear some kind of vibration or frequency, they just fly away. And then they come back in their land, but they stay in the flocks, this species of bird. So there were so many, and I stood there for like 5 minutes just watching them do this back and forth, back and forth. It was so cool.
It creates feeding the animals like that creates its own little ecosystem. Because more birds, you're going to get also the smaller rodents, and then you're going to get the snakes, and then the birds of prey.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, all the elementals that are connected to all those animals.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think this is really maybe something we can leave for us to consider and to think and to acknowledge and to remember and to practice that whatever we see, is now a tree, a bird, a human being, let's look at what elemental is attached to that. And wasn't that Tanya, you're so good with movies, there was a movie where everyone had their soul was an animal. I can't remember.
That was the Golden Compass, the His Dark Materials series, which is extraordinary. We were talking about that last week in the Land of the Dead. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So I have seen this. I'm so bad with shit like that. And I thought it was so fun, that they have their own animals, which was supposed to be the soul. Now, for human beings, it's not just, there is the soul element, but also there is an elemental, apparently. This is what this guy is saying, which I thought was quite interesting. I never really looked at that. A particular elemental. Some people call it an angel, right? A birth angel or something that comes with you into the incarnation, so that's a nice little exercise to look at. What is your elemental that you're working with? And lots of people that are working with that kind of material. We do have the dragon, elementals, you know. But I would almost say, you know, that it's not just one. And, you know, they're also shape shifting. I think everything is this formlessness, and everything is plasma and illusion and changes every 5 seconds now. This is really coming in, you know, and that not being defined by anything anymore, and that way out. Everything is on the way out, so that something new is going to come in.
Well, and as we connect more and more with our multidimensional blueprint and those multidimensional parts of us, what elementals are we also connecting with those unseen parts of us?
And then let's expand on the word elementals, because it's becoming too small, right? And let's just call it sentient for now until we have a better word for that. You know, divine sparks, we can call it that too. That's what Maya is telling me right now. Okay.
Divine co-creative sentience.
All right, my darlings.
Thank
Well,
you.
let me leave you with a movie that I watched that I thought it was funny, and it has to do with ghosts and stuff like that. If you're looking for a comedy to watch, it's an Indian movie, but it's in English because it was filmed in England, and it was done by the same people who did Bend It Like Beckham, and it's called "It's a Wonderful Afterlife," and it's in full English. I think it might be on Netflix or Amazon Prime. I'm not sure which.
Fabulous.
It's a Wonderful Afterlife. It has ghosts inside,
Fabulous.
and it's a murder mystery kind of thing. Well, it's not a mystery because you know who did the killing, but it's about the ghost and the interaction with the killer, and more people dying, and the detective trying to find out who the killer is. So
Fabulous.
but it's funny.
Fabulous. We need a bit of funny. Now, there's just something that's come in just now as well before I let you all go. You know, I'm an avid collector of things and finding things and all of that. So look at your house, what you've got, be this now jewelry or any things, and just look, because every time we find something, we I don't want to call it, we create a bubble for them to be in that particular container, whatever that is. And with that redistribution, everything, some of those energies want to be let go now. Some of them we are trapping by keeping these things around us. Just like what Tanya is saying, you know, that heart needs to go to Egypt. There's lots of things, you know, I did this exercise the other day, and I realized I had quite a few things which were all part of me, part of my energy, but they wanted to leave. So I just did a little entrapment ceremony. It took 2 seconds. Okay, guys, get out of here. And it was amazing because, you know, and I said, before you go, a little bit of thank you, gratitude for having you here, and the other way around. And I even got a nice little healing. They worked on my chest, you know, before they left. So let's look at that too.
It's
You're reminding me of a
cartoon scene where the little plate spins around on the ground and they're just gone.
Yeah.
Like, it's gone.
You're reminding me of a show that Andrew did with JP. I think it must have been back in 2017, 18, I don't remember. But he came on and they were talking about shuffling around of energy that was going on at the moment, because Andrew was reading the current energy. And what he was saying is that he's seeing things going on as like beings are taking their stuff back and things are shuffling around, and they were like making fun of it, and they were saying, you take your shit back, and you take your shit back, and you take your stuff back from 30 million years ago. And it was kind of funny. They were making you know, comedy out of it. But you were just reminding me of that show. I've forgotten about it. But it was a cool show to listen to. But I don't know if it's in Andrew's archive. It might have been.
If you find it, if anyone finds it, just pop it in our And that was a very personal thing, because it's not just energies that are trapped, other people's energies that are trapped. It's literally my own stuff, like, you know, Atlantean stuff, Lemurian stuff, or just from other lifetimes, just having an Egyptian statue there. Yeah. You know, because that reminded me, obviously, but there was an element, not elemental, but an element of me in that statue that said, you know what, gotta go. That's
And so as we're at the beginning of the year and cleansing all of those old things out of our energetic spaces, right? That's something definitely to ritualize and consider, right? And acknowledge.
Yeah.
Like, how is this object holding something stuck in me?
Absolutely. Where am I holding myself stuck by keeping that object, right? Absolutely. And
we can say, bye, Felicia.
and always that gratitude, because that was so beautiful. I even got a little healing out of it, because I said, oh, finally you're looking at us, you know. I've been standing there for how long? Because I do go around and I look at it, so do I still need you? Do I still need you? But obviously I hadn't done it of late, and this was the time. And it wasn't even that I had to take the object away. It wasn't even that. It was almost like I can still do that, but it was the energy that was literally sort of got a bit stale in there. And why? Because everything, it wants to expand. And I think this is a really cool way of looking at it. And when we're looking at losing something, we are actually expanding ourselves. So this is the inverted matrix. We're not, when we say letting go, we're not making ourselves smaller, we're making ourselves bigger. On that note, thanks
you
for coming on.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week. Yeah.
Really good
Recording.
stuff, guys.
Take care. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Very nice show.
Yes, say bye.
Thanks,
Amelia.
everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.